Hello and welcome to the Heart of Collaboration. I'm your host, Bernice Belt, and I'm so happy that we have this opportunity right here in the TV department at WKCTC in Paducah, Kentucky, to bring you this show and to have the great guests that we have. And this time we have Mr. Corbin Snardon, and he is one awesome young man in our community. And he's going to let you know what he does and why he does it. And we intend to enlighten you and to educate you and to encourage you because of the work that he's doing. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, Ms. Belt. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and welcome, and thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy, and we're going to find out how busy he is in just a minute. So if you would, Brother Snardon, if you would tell us what you're going to do. We're going to talk about two different things during this episode, and if you would go ahead and share with us.
Absolutely. First, let me thank you for allowing me to be on the show today. So
you're welcome.
I am the Title I counselor for Paducah Public Schools, and what that entails is not only being over what's called Title I funding, which deals with students that fall in at-risk categories, so students from severe situations of poverty, low SES, socioeconomic status, but it also deals with students that fall into the really other high-risk categories that might even involve around race or special behaviors and things of that nature. So my position entails quite a bit. It's very interactive. Within my position, I'm focusing strictly this year on student transitions and student failure rates. So my goal is to make sure that students are transitioning well from the elementary age to middle school age, and from middle school to high school, and making sure that we're seeing that these kids do not fail and slip through the cracks, and making sure they matriculate through our school system very well.
Well, I'm curious. Tell us how this position began. What was the journey or the process that brought the school district to this point?
Well, the school district had been noticing for some time that there were increasing numbers of students that were falling through the cracks. And I was a classroom teacher. I previously taught at Paducah Middle School for the last 6 years, and the position did not exist beforehand. And so the district saw a need for my position to be created and to make sure that these students were getting the support that they needed to be able to matriculate through the school system effectively. Well, and in looking at some of the numbers of, and I don't want to say failure rate, but at a loss for a better term, failure can be, of course, looked at in different ways. But what were some of the numbers or some of the studies that determined that this position, first of all, needed to be created, and then share with us how you were blessed to be placed in this position? Absolutely. So, well, the numbers started showing that there were just increasing numbers of, particularly, I'll use the high school for example, that there were particularly high numbers of students that were going into what's known as credit recovery. So credit recovery is for students who fail a course, and to make sure that they don't have to retake the course, they go into a credit recovery, which is an online system, so that they make up for that course. So the trend was showing a very negative trend, I'll say, of students increasing in those credit recovery courses, which is having a detrimental effect, or could have a detrimental effect. The more students that are in credit recovery, the less students are likely to graduate on time, the fewer class options that they have to take. So the district started to notice that, and they wanted to find some way to try to reduce that. How do we stop this? I believe at one point in time, the numbers had gotten almost to maybe 38% of the high school had at least one course of credit recovery over their 4 years of high school, which is very high. Yes. It's a very high number. So the district is really working hard to lower those numbers, and my position is a big part of that. To answer the second part of the question of how I got blessed with the position, I can just say is a blessing in disguise, so to speak. I was in the classroom, and I was content in the classroom, and felt I was doing really good work there, and I had just finished my master's through Murray State. And then I saw the position open up within the district. I applied, and the rest was history. Awesome. And then, of course, you have the reputation for being an excellent educator. Thank you. Energetic, focused, always purposed, and the students always have
excellent learning experience from you. You didn't know I knew all that, did you? Also, you've been studying, the last time we talked about your educational, continuing education, you were enrolled in the master's program. How were you with that?
Well, I finished my first master's, which was in school counseling through Murray State.
Your first master's?
My first master's. I'm almost done with my second one. So in May, I'll have a master's in administration, education administration through Murray State. So I believe that continuing education is very important, particularly as an educator and being in the classroom. It makes it very hard to say, I'm an educator and you should learn if I'm not learning myself. So I believe that continually learning sets the example for the kids to do that within their own life.
Exactly. Good wisdom, good career move, and a good example to set. To go back to that recovery, what did you call it?
Credit recovery.
Credit recovery. You know, I was thinking as you were talking about that limits the interaction that a student has in the classroom, doesn't it? And other things in the school, because young people, I can't imagine anybody in middle school or high school, and I know some wonderful middle school and high school students, but I cannot imagine 38% would be focused so much and mature enough to the point to where credit recovery would really be a successful and a beneficial program to start with. I understand the thought behind it, and it probably worked for a small percentage. I just can't imagine those kids being focused and mature enough to make that really work.
Yeah. The ideology behind credit recovery is to help a select few kids. In reality, it should be a very small number of kids that have to go into this class to make up for courses that they fail. But what has happened over the years and through a long period of time, I should say, is that it's kind of spiraled out of control. And so to see 38% of the children at one point in time at least taking 1 hour of this course, you know, like I said, that leads them to have fewer course options. You have to divert teacher resources and manpower to teach this course instead of teaching something else, another elective per se or something of that nature. And then the data also reflected that there were disparaging numbers in terms of there were higher percentages of African American students that were going into credit recovery as opposed to other races. So along with my position and my colleagues, you know, we're really trying to fix that problem for sure.
And also, did you find that maybe the teachers would submit names of students for that, or what was the process to get them into that part of the program?
The process basically entailed looking at student grades and looking at all the grades and seeing that, okay, this student failed algebra or this student failed English. And so when we look at the numbers, depending on the next incoming class, because there's only so many spots within a classroom that you can fill. So depending on how many spots are within that next upcoming class would depend on whether we would allow that student to retake the course and just, you know, sit in that classroom again with the maybe a different teacher or the same teacher, either or. But if there were no spots open, then they would have to go into credit recovery. So fortunately, the district has had a good problem of having more students come into our school district, which is fantastic. But, you know, that also sets a barrier for students that are failing, because then we have to say, well, you failed this course, we have to put you in credit recovery. We can't just let you retake the course. And when we further looked into the details of why students are failing, a lot of it is dealing with missing work, missing assignments. Students, for whatever reason, for whatever barrier, are not getting their work completed in a timely fashion, not having the work ethic to kind of finish it and complete it. Overwhelmingly, I find out that it's not that they can't do the work, it's that the work is just not being done, which is unique.
And so that involves, of course, the home environment.
It does.
Because children put themselves here, and children can't raise themselves. And so they need family involvement, family support, parents, whether there's two in the family or one in the family. When it comes to helping a child stay on course, you can have 100 parents, but if none of them are helping the children to progress, then they won't progress. So knowing that, how do you offset that in the program that you have now?
I offset it with a lot of truth. The truth sets you free in many ways. And so I do have to work with students, which is great. I love that part of my job, but I also get the chance to work with parents, with teachers, with the administrators. And collectively, I do believe in the whole, it takes a village to raise a child.
Indeed.
So I believe that everybody working together works on that. And it's funny that you mentioned you know, the home life. I think when parents really realize the inequity that's in education that's existing, they tend to get on board. And when I explain to them some of the startling statistics, they're like, oh, we didn't know that. We didn't know that there was this many kids that were going into these courses. Or we didn't know that there were so few of us going into, and by us I do mean African Americans, there were so few African Americans that were in higher level courses, honors track or advanced placement courses, dual credit. And so when I explain that to parents and say that, you know, your child is just as capable as anyone else, your child can do this, you know, that tends to light a spark and the parent becomes more involved. The child wants to do better. You know, it's funny how a little bit of affirmation goes a long way.
From the psychological aspect or the sociological aspect, how would you say, or how would you explain the impact that parents who didn't finish high school or didn't go on to higher education or who are not involved in the school for their child's sake? Let's talk a little bit about the impact of all that on the child's success.
Well, it definitely matters if a parent has completed a certain degree of education, but I tend to approach it with a Jerry Maguire type of style. Show me the money.
Show me the money.
Show me the money. So, you know, all the research shows that if you have a high school diploma, you're less likely to earn more over time than somebody with an associate's degree, certification in a trade, a college degree, advanced degree, whatever. So when we start explaining to students, and of course, being children, you know, they don't quite see as far as we do. They haven't experienced life in the way that adults have. But they can understand a dollar amount. Do you want your income to be $30,000 a year, or do you want it to be $80,000 a year? Which ranges the gamut from when you're talking about, I graduated with a high school degree, or I graduated with an advanced degree from college. And so when they see that, students are more likely like, oh wow, this is serious. You know, I don't want to spend my life making minimum wage for the rest of my life. I can't make any type of living off of that. They start to see, okay, I need to invest in my education. And so what I try to tell parents is, just like you want your bank account to have money in it, you have to make deposits. So you need to deposit stuff into your child's life. You need to invest in your child's life. And that is very simple. I mean, it's as simple as giving little affirmations every day. It's as simple as making sure they're on a routine and a schedule to complete homework and complete assignments. And though I'm an educator and I love the school, a lot of learning happens outside of the schoolhouse.
Indeed.
And so, you know, it's okay to read a book. It's okay to talk to your children about things that are going on in the world, to have, depending on their age, you know, age-appropriate discussions about the things that are going on. It's okay to challenge them with questions, to force them to learn different things. It's okay for them to see how adults have to interact. Maybe not so deep into it as to say, okay, this is what I pay for my bills a month, but they should be able to understand, okay, this is how you pay for bills. This is how I have to budget money, or, you know, I make X amount of money this month. How do I figure out how to pay all these bills with this much money? You know, those are practical skills that everyone needs to know. Doesn't matter what your level of income is. And so if parents take the time to invest in their child in that way, I think it pays massive dividends.
Yes. I teach a sociology class, and one of the foundations of my lectures is that economics drives everything. And so, and I tell them, you're never going to ever be too young to incorporate understanding economics in your life. It's not going to go away. And so you need to make it a part of your lifestyle, is to understand it, embrace it, and use it to your advantage. I know that your primary interaction, of course, will be the students and the district team. But when you're interacting with the parents, how do you approach them, knowing that many don't have the education level that, of course, because they're human, they probably would want to have had. But how do you talk to them about helping their children with homework, listening to their children explain the homework, even if parents don't understand it?
Well, I think meeting people where they're at is important. With parent meetings and all the different interactions that I've had with parents, I try to be as down to earth as possible. I can be very professional and be very businesslike, but when I'm speaking with a parent, I want to talk to you like a normal person. I don't want to throw all the teacher jargon at you and the 30,000 acronyms we use in a day to describe what we do. I just want to put it in plain terms. And if you're a parent that says, well, the common thing is, well, we didn't have this type of math when I was in school, or I graduated high school. I don't know how to do this stuff that they're doing now. I look at that almost in a way of being an excuse, so to say, because if you can't help your child with it, that's fine. I can understand that. But there are so many resources and so many people that are available to help your child that there really is no excuse to say that, well, I can't help them. Well, okay, you can't help them, but you can stay after school. Teachers are always welcome to stay after school. Or the library still works. It's more than for just renting DVDs and getting a little bit of free internet. And speaking of the internet, I mean, we have literally more information at the tips of our fingers than we've ever had before in our lives. You can almost Google or figure out anything from Google. So I encourage, parents to think outside of the box. Don't just think that you have to come straight to the teacher to get the information. That, sometimes the teacher isn't always available. But, the internet is 24/7, 7/11. So if you have access to that, then obviously it opens up a lot of opportunities for you. But it also requires parents and, most importantly, the students to take responsibility and ownership of their education. It's your education. I have mine. You have to be responsible for yours. And so I encourage students, when I see them struggling with classes, the first question that I ask is, did you talk to the teacher? Well, no. Well, you need to go and talk to the teacher. But what am I supposed to say? Well, you start by asking, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, I need help with this. Can you help me figure out how to do this algebra problem? Can you help me write this paper? Those are simple things that students need to learn, and practical skills, because we as adults have to do them. We have to learn to ask questions. We have to learn to figure out how to problem solve and to think critically. So I think that there's never a wrong age to start teaching kids how to do that.
When, in the course of a school year, how does your team come together? And when you come together, what do you come together to do?
Well, we collaborate pretty frequently. If not bi-weekly, then at least monthly, we're meeting with our district team and teachers and all those who are involved in the process. And we sit down and we look at, okay, let's look at the data, let's look at the numbers, let's strategize. And then once we have that strategy, let's see if it's working. Let's implement the strategy, reassess in a couple weeks and see if it's working or not. If it's not working, go back to the drawing board. If it is, let's improve on it.
Do you go to the principals yourself, or how does you serving in your position, how do you interact with the school principals and the guidance counselors?
Oh, I work very closely with them. We all kind of cross-reference each other in our own different areas, and so I rely heavily upon them, for the information that they have, because they've been there longer than I have, and so they are able to tell me things about the students, and plus it helps when I know almost all the students. I taught them at some point in time, so I think we work together as a very good team, and they're fantastic colleagues. So.
Yes. Do you have parent representatives when you ever meet or come together? Do you have times where you'll let parents come and kind of just pour out to y'all, or is there some way that y'all work with the parents in that way?
Well, in particular on our district meetings, I wouldn't say that we necessarily have a parent representative on there, but we do share and disseminate all of our information with the school site-based decision-making council, the SBDM council, which has 2 parent reps on it. So they're kind of our information and our relay for parents.
Awesome. All right. Well, in a couple of minutes, we're going to shift to the position you have with the local NAACP. But before we do that, I want to ask you one last thing. What would you want to say to all parents as it relates to helping to make this program more effective?
I would say to parents that the best thing, or the thing that I would love to see from them the most is, I would love to see them more visible, and I would love to see them challenging their kids. I am a teacher. I'm a teacher at heart, and I love teaching. However, the first teacher a child ever sees is their parent. And so you've got to teach your child just as much. You've got to challenge them. You've really got to push your child. Let your child know that, okay, you're struggling in this class, but as long as you're struggling, that means you're learning. A healthy struggle is good. You know, why don't you take this class? This is an honors class. You can do it. I know you can do it. This is an advanced placement course. It gives you college credit. You should do this. Go into this. So I really want to just see parents really get behind their kids and push them to their fullest potential, because while I'm very committed to helping the kids, I'm one person, you know, and no man is an island unto himself, so I can't do it by myself. So I would love to see more parents become more actively involved and working with the school district to improve their children.
And to get over their fear of communicating with educators.
Oh, yes.
Educators are just humans, just like them, who happen to have the ability to teach. And so get over the fear and increase the love and the concern for the child.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so, and then parents will want to be supportive of Mr. Snardon and the team for this district also. So, and thank you so much. That was excellent. Let's shift to the position that you have with the local NAACP. What is that title and what does it entail?
Well, I am the newly elected, at least for the last 6 months or so, the Paducah McCracken County NAACP Education Committee Chair. I know it's a long title, but it just means that I'm over the education initiatives that the NAACP is doing within Paducah and McCracken County.
Excellent. And so I think it was last November you were officially introduced in that position.
Yes.
And then Mr. Cleary, who's the president of the local NAACP, tries to keep people informed about the initiatives or the programs that the NAACP has. So what are some things that you've implemented, or better yet, what you are looking at in the months and the years ahead?
Well, the oncoming vision that I would love for the Education Committee to keep pushing forward is really just making sure that, one, education within Paducah McCracken County, both in the county schools and the city schools, is becoming more equitable. So kind of concurrently with what I'm doing in my own job, making sure that students of color and of other ethnicities and nationalities are really performing either at the level that their other peers are or even beyond. We're also working on an initiative to do a report on the state of education within Paducah McCracken County to try to see just how and show people just how inequitable education is in comparison to the national average. We're also looking for opportunities to educate our children and really involve the youth in there. So we definitely want more kids to join. There is an NAACP youth chapter. So we definitely want more kids to join the organization, and so that they can learn how to do things like advocacy and really just see how a civil rights organization like the NAACP works. And
so you're moving beyond the beautiful essays that are done for Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration, and you're moving beyond thinking about conferences and things like that, but really intense approach, a clear, intense approach to equity in education and holding kids and parents responsible in a sweet way, but a firm way, because life is what it is and needs are what they are. Who are some of the people that are on your committee at this time?
Well, currently, of course, myself as the education chair, Ms. Celeste Emerson, who was a former school district employee, Mrs. Beretta Hurt, who is a phenomenal educator, a retired educator now, Mr. Cleary, who's also one of the president, who is also the president, I'm sorry, and a slew of other people. But, you know, we're always looking for more people, so that anybody that wants to join the education committee, they're more than welcome to. In fact, they're more than welcome to join the NAACP organization.
Yes.
Mr. Cleary would be glad to know I put this plug in for it. But yeah, membership is only $30 a year, or you can work on your life membership, which I believe is $750 total, but you pay $75 a year until that's all paid off. So that's a wonderful option. Membership in the NAACP is not necessary. We hope that you would if you want to be a part of the education committee, but it's not required. And currently we're meeting on the second Tuesday of every month at the W.C. Young Center at 5:30. So second Tuesdays of each month at the W.C. Young.
Okay, and W.C. Young Community Center is on South 8th Street?
Yes.
Okay, and very close to the Paducah Board of Education building?
Very close.
Okay.
Three blocks away.
Awesome. Well, we have about a minute and a half or so. What would you like to say also about the NAACP's approach to education, and that, and then the NAACP, that C means for colored people, not for just black people. Right. So when the NAACP was initially formed, it was formed by black men and white men and black women and white women. So it's Absolutely. For everybody, not just for black folks. Right. But because society has developed as it has, we have to honestly look at the inequity between one race and another, or among other ethnicities. So what encouragement would you like to give above and beyond what you've already shared?
I would say that the NAACP is one of the oldest civil rights organizations that has existed, and like you just mentioned, it was formed by a collection of different people. It wasn't just formed by African Americans, it was formed by whites, it was formed by blacks. And in terms of education, I can seldom name another organization that has done more to educate the populace on what they need to know in terms of advocacy, in terms of civil rights, in terms of legislation. It's a tried and true organization, and it has a strong focus in education. You know, you think of people like Thurgood Marshall, who was famous for the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education, and a slew of other people that have come through the NAACP and have really pushed it to be the organization that it is. And in the current political climate that we are in, and the state of the country as it is, I think that there is a bigger need now more than ever for the NAACP to speak up on the issues that are going on. Excellent. Well, we thank you, Mr. Corbin Snardon, for being our guest today. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the Paducah City School District and with the NAACP. And we would like to ask you to come back in a few months and let's talk about what's been going on and give people an update. Would you do that? Oh, absolutely. Well, bless you, and thank you so much for being my friend. Oh, thank you. And being a younger person who is certainly a role model for me as well in so many ways. Oh. We thank you so much, and we appreciate you. Have a great, great year.